So in order to frame the 15 tips we're going to talk about today, let's talk about three types of challenging learners that we run into. And certainly, in the course of your learning and development career, all of us go and deal with a lot of challenging learners, different needs that different people have. So these are just three that I have picked out for this session. We've got the long distance learner, we've got the busy bee, and we've got the snowflake. So just to go through and talk a little bit about what each of those look like and how those tips are going to pertain to them. All right, so here's what the long distance learner might look like. And feel free to type in the chat and share some traits that you feel a long distance learner might have. So this is somebody who obviously is geographically dispersed. They might be working from home. They're obviously a remote employee, or at least they are part-time. And there are a lot of specialized things that tend to affect a long-distance learner. If they're 100% remote, you've got somebody who may sometimes feel disconnected from the culture of their organization, right? That person might need encouragement to feel like they're a part of the team. And if you help them feel like they're a part of the team, they automatically have more motivation to be part of the learning and development organization. So you have an opportunity as a learning professional to actually correct multiple issues. Communication may be an issue. It could be an issue for multiple reasons. Could be something that's language related. It could also just be that person is constantly communicating only by writing, right? Or they're communicating mostly by email, so they don't necessarily have that opportunity to connect like someone in person. And also, basic training even may have to be performed slightly differently. So if you're thinking about something like new hire orientation, you may have to figure out how to provide that virtually and figure out a good blended learning format that's still very engaging to this long distance learner, right? So we're getting a lot of great stuff in the chat, moving quickly, lots of great traits that you're sharing there about long distance learners. Lots of sweatpants. That's very important, Alan. Yes. So yeah, there are a lot of great traits that we need to consider when we're catering to a long distance learner. Bathrobes, yes. All right, so moving to the next one of our three types today, we've got the busy bee, and there are lots of busy bees. There are lots of types of busy bees, right? The busy bee wants to be motivated to care. So this person has a lot on their plate. Thank you, Michaela. This person is constantly trying to juggle multiple tasks. This could be an executive director. This could be, managers, executives, like Michael is saying, sales reps. Could be somebody who travels a lot. Could easily be somebody who's also long distance. You could be multiple types of challenging learner all in one package. So this person really needs efficiency. They are repelled by any kind of wasted time. So you really have to tailor and customize to this learner. And they may not be somebody who wants to go out and seek training. They may need you to come to them and offer it up to them. Otherwise, they just don't think about it. All right, so like you're saying, you have to prioritize the time. All right, so the snowflake learner. So this is that special person who just needs an extra help to maybe use the generic training that you're offering, but they need just a little something extra. So this person has some unique needs. They're coming in, maybe they're new to the job, maybe they have one of those situations where it's a very quick uptake that they need. So, for example, I used to work in legal, and you would have somebody come in, this is a partner. Their time's worth $2,000 to $3,000 an hour sometimes. And this person comes in the morning And they're expected to be up to speed and actually doing client calls by the afternoon. So that person has unique needs. They all of them have different learning needs, and they need to get up to speed very quickly. You have to do a white glove approach. You have to do a lot of one-on-one training sometimes, and it has to be tailored to this person, right? Otherwise, you're always going to lose a little bit of efficiency. So as you're saying here, yeah, absolutely. They have to hit the ground running. They have to have training that is tailored directly to their field, and they definitely value in-person training. So absolutely, online can be mixed in, I would say, and used effectively as a blended learning method, but you have to really think about how you want to tailor it. All really good feedback from the chat. Thank you. All right. So we have a quick little poll here that Gary's going to pull up for us. Just a fun little thing. Which type of learner do you cater to the most? And to be fair, down there at the bottom, we actually have a fourth option just for everyone who has all three of them, in addition to probably other types. Great, and those answers are coming in. Busy Bee is doing pretty well. But a lot of people have all of them, which is not surprising. And does anybody, you can respond in chat, does anybody have a single person or persons who are all three? Yep. So we're going to have lots of tips that work for all of them. Alan, how about the go away you bother me? That can sometimes, I guess that fits under Busy Bee, right? Great. Well, it looks like the poll has stopped. So if we want to pull that back. Thank you, Gary. Gary runs everything in the background. He knows all. All right. So now that we've kind of established that framework of our types, we're going to get into some tips for each of those types. So the 15 tips we're going to go over today actually are subdivided, and we're going to do 5 tips for each kind of person. But again, I would just like to say, encourage everyone to really contribute to the chat, and if you've got other approaches in addition to what I'm sharing, please share those with the group because they will be part of the transcript. So here we're going to start with a long distance learner, the approaches to that, and if we could pull up that poll real quick. I'm going to give Gary a second to do that, and then we'll go into the 5 approaches.
The poll? Am I missing a poll?
Oh, I'm sorry. I mean the dedicated chat, Gary.
Oh, it's there?
Oh, thank you. I saw the snowflake for a minute, and then I was like, well, let's keep it organized. All right, so...
I'll put a line in there to divide this.
Excellent. All right, cool. So before we get into these, quick little caveat. And this is based on just personal experience that I'd like to share. A lot of people get into marketing, and marketing is kind of like that shiny thing that all of us like doing, or at least I like doing. So we immediately go, okay, well, we've got this training program that's established. We need to figure out a way to share it, and we start implementing marketing ideas. And really, that's possibly the second step to this process. I would say the first step before you do your marketing program is to really look with a critical eye at your learning and development materials. Because if your content is not completely polished, if it's not fully up to snuff, then your marketing campaign isn't going to be as successful as it could be. So definitely go through with a critical eye, curate your content, polish it up, make sure that you have the types of content that you want to put out to the learners, and then go ahead and start with these tips. And that actually leads very nicely into the first tip that we have here, which is your training team structure. So we're talking about the long distance learner here. and we're talking about what works for them. The long distance learner in particular has to have multiple ways to access their learning content. So this person may want to have e-learning. They may want interactive materials that they can access. They probably appreciate written materials that they can access that are basically quick reference guides while they're on the road. Um, this person also obviously values in-person training and contact with a human being, but a lot of times they may need to do that virtually. So consider your current structure. If you are somebody who has a lot of classroom trainers, that's awesome. But if you're trying to create e-learning development materials, you may want to consider dedicating some of those people to an e-learning development role. I'll give you a kind of a personal example from this. One of my management roles, I came in and I was in charge of 9 people. And what we were trying to do was take what was mainly a classroom curriculum and make that more friendly to a global audience. This was a global organization I was working with, and they wanted to have a big variety of blended learning materials. So what we did was we actually split. I love that, Jonathan. You're in charge of 4 people, but sadly they are all me. Um, we took the team and we actually split into 3 sub-teams. So we had 4 people who were still in charge of classroom training, virtual training sessions, new hire orientation, and so on. We had 2 people who moved into an instructional design role. So those people were responsible for curation and putting together instructional design, written materials, so on and so forth. And we had another group of 3 people who were mainly in charge of e-learning development and LMS administration. We had somebody who was also helping out part-time from another team who was in charge of video production. So if you have the luxury of having multiple people on your team, you can certainly think about dedicating them. And the biggest thing that you get out of that is you allow each of those people to concentrate on less tasks. You're giving them less of a cognitive load, and they can deepen their knowledge because they have time to focus on it. This is particularly good for e-learning developers because it takes a while to dedicate time and learn the software necessary. So, just an idea. Yeah, everybody has a hat rack. Definitely. This is one of those fields where you have to kind of know how to do everything, right? Absolutely. All right, so we will move on from that. Go into some tips that will work even if you are a team of 1. So, as we were talking about and touching on a little bit earlier, one of the tricks with the long distance learner is figuring out a way to have them feel connected with the rest of the team, right? So video conference is a really good way to do this, and I think it's actually an underutilized way of doing it because normally what we do is we just have the speaker on camera. If you're having a big meeting of at least several people, different locations, and you have the capability of doing video conference in each of those locations, I think it's nice to actually have everybody on camera so that they can see each other. You end up building a sense of community over time, and everybody can collaborate a little bit easier. You can see people, you can tell when somebody wants to speak, and so on. And the other nice thing is if you trade off, if you've got, a weekly meeting, let's say, with your group, and you can have people take turns training everyone on a particular topic that they're particularly adept with. You have the opportunity to build in some training, cross-train your team, and everybody gets a chance to speak. And again, that's building community as you're passing along different things. All right, so training cohorts. This is a concept that I have found to be especially useful if you've got somebody who's coming in as a new hire and they're going to be working remotely. They don't necessarily have that opportunity to get to know their team and get to know everybody around them in the company. So if you can, try to get them into a training cohort, which means, have everybody who's hired within a particular month or 3-month period um, in the same classes, which means, if you're delivering your new hire curriculum, think about piecing it out, thinking about, instead of delivering it all at once in the first couple of days, deliver it piece by piece over the course of several weeks, and have everybody attend the same sessions. That way they're talking to each other, kind of like what we're doing right now. You've got the chat going, you get to talk to each other, maybe you see each other on video, and you're constantly talking to those people, and you can actually share what you're experiencing as a new hire. The other nice part of a training cohort and piecing everything out like that is that you can basically promote retention. You don't want to have everything fall in the same couple of days, because you get that cognitive overload where people just can't hold on to the information that you're putting out there. So if you can space it out and just focus on maybe a couple hours of material in the first couple of days, and then bring that person back in for shorter sessions later on, that's great for a new hire. And absolutely, we're getting some good feedback in the chat box about video conferencing being a great option. And Alan says it would be cool to promote it as a branded activity, team insights or something. Yeah, that would be great. So you could take your cohort and actually build it into a formalized training program and build your branding around that. So from a marketing perspective, that's awesome. The nice part about a cohort is it does the marketing for you, because you really have a group of classes. And once someone takes the original class, they're motivated to kind of stick with their group and continue working with that group. That's awesome. And Amanda actually has a cohort and a new professional ambassador program. And this is actually something I encountered when I was working in legal. One of the programs that was out there was for summer associates. So that's basically a brand new lawyer. And when they come in, they're going through an entire cohort and taking classes over the course of about 3 months to prepare them. No matter which practice area they're working in, there are certain generalized pieces of information they need. All right, so we're going to move on. Scavenger hunts. This was something that seemed to resonate when I presented it during the conference. The idea of a virtual class needing to be broken up by in-person activities was something that we were talking about a little bit. And it's something that's very easy to incorporate. So if you've got a virtual class, particularly for a new hire, an example of a scavenger hunt could be that you have everybody get up, you've got a map for each of those people of their location, and you ask that they go and find the fire extinguishers on their floor, or have them go find the first aid kits on their floor. Have them go find something and then come back. They could either take a picture of it and come back and tell the group about it, whatever you want to do as far as an assignment. You can do this not just in a virtual classroom format, but you could also have this be an assignment that they turn in via the learning management system. So there are a lot of different ways that you can use a scavenger hunt, and it just breaks up the material, gives them a chance to stretch their legs, and is kind of a nice blended learning activity that doesn't take a whole lot of work. Yes, purple crayon, very important, Caro. I'll be looking for mine later. Awesome. Carmen Simone has people take a picture of their shoes and submit a quick history in her webinars. That's funny. That's cute. All right, so number 5 for long distance learners. Blitzing locations with mob style training events. So this does not refer to the mafia. This refers to picking a location. I'll give you an example that's easier. So let's say you got 50 different locations, right? Yeah, flash mob, Michaela. And let's say you've got one of those locations that's way out, it's remote, and the people there don't really get to see people in person much. You do mainly virtual training for these people. So the idea of this is you get your executive leadership together. They have to meet anyway in person, let's say. Have them meet at that remote location, have them do their meeting, and while they're there, give them some task, some easy thing that they can go out on the floor and share with all of the employees, all of the learners there, and let them talk to those people. And really, to me, this accomplishes two different things. You're giving information to the people, knowledge to the people at that location, but you also have the opportunity to reach out and touch them and establish a personal connection, which I think is really key for somebody who doesn't get the opportunity to be trained in person that often. Um, it makes people feel really special. I've actually participated in one of these, and you would be amazed by how receptive learners are and how much it means to them. It seems to mean to them emotionally to have someone actually show up for them and just give them brownies, have them sit down and give them 5 minutes of knowledge. It means a lot. So just something to think about. Doesn't cost any extra money either if you build it into your executive meetings and so on and so forth, and you're strategic with how you schedule those. It's great. Christine, let's see. Another example of this. So if you have a group, let's say I recently had a training meeting. All right. So everybody met in San Diego, and I had all of my trainers there in person. We could have easily gone out and trained the entire floor together. And what you do is basically all 9 people decide on a topic, a training topic, and you decide on a 5-minute training. All 9 people in that meeting learn that topic, and then they go out and they share it on the floor with everybody who is present at that location. We actually did a smaller version of this with less than 9 people, but that's the idea of it. Hopefully that makes sense. These are great ideas for employee and internal training. What are some ideas and thoughts for people external to the company and those who actually pay for training? I think you could actually modify this and have this be something that works externally as well, if you've got enough people who are delivering the training. I don't know that a mob-style training event will work definitely for that. It just depends on how many people are involved in the training. And Amber, 9 people together, or each of the 9 go to a different floor? That's a good question. You could have, in the mob-style training that I had done, we paired up and we went 2 by 2. So you would have 2 people together delivering the training, because in that particular case we had a trainer partnered with another person, and they would go room to room, floor to floor. They had their own little area of the location that they were covering, and they would go and deliver that training. You can cover more ground that way. Thank you, Amber. Yeah. It's fun. It's actually a lot of fun. And Alan says, even concepts like mob style might apply to some virtual settings, which is a great call out. Social media conversations, internal discussion boards, hijack a Slack channel, that sort of thing. That's a great idea, Alan. Thank you. All right, so we're going to move along to the next section. So these are all ideas that pertain to the long distance learner. And we're going to switch over, and we're actually going to go to the chat for the next section that we have here, which is the busy bee, and we've got the cute picture back. Yay. All right, so feel free to share some ideas that you have for the busy bee learner as we go through these. And the first idea that we have here is gamification. So if you are one who is an LMS admin, if that's one of the hats that you wear, you are probably aware of how much gamification can do for your training program in terms of motivating those who are busy. I have worked with a number of companies who are related to aerospace and other areas where the employees, the learners, are paid a lot of money and under a lot of pressure. So their time is worth a lot to them and also to the organization. You would think that gamification would not work for this type of person because it takes more time sometimes to get them involved in a game rather than just delivering training. I have actually found it to be the opposite. People are more motivated if you set them up with a game and basically say, here's a curriculum that applies to this game. And if you work your way through it, you have the opportunity to beat group XYZ at the same organization. So this is definitely something that a learning management system is great for. Adobe Captivate Prime, if you ever want to do a free trial of that, you can see how this works. You can set up a leaderboard and badges and different things like that. And you can apply this to a group of people, meaning they're competing against each other. You can also set up individual gamification where you can kind of split out and see your accomplishments in different areas, different categories of learning that you're completing. And Felice says, we used a game for compliance material with new hires and loved it. Absolutely. So this is a way to take topics that may not be the favorite of the person who's going through it, or it might not be native to them, something that they're comfortable with. This is a way to make it more exciting and keep them motivated to go through it. Michaela says we do it with security awareness. And actually, I had a program, one of the first gamification programs I ever did was for security awareness. And we saw a huge jump in participation as soon as gamification was implemented. It was about an 800% jump. So, and it carried over not just to compliance and the things that were required to participate in gamification, it actually carried over to other kinds of training. Lisa Anderson is calling out Kahoot games, which are a lot of fun, and if I'm correct, they are free. They're still free, right? Yes, awesome. All right, so gamification. The other thing that's great for the busy bees, they're always trying to do two different things at the same time. They're always on the go. And if you've got a group of frequent travelers, particularly sales reps, that sort of thing, they are always trying to get two different things done when they're at the airport. If you're familiar with the term online-offline sync, this is something that's absolutely perfect for this type of learner. So online-offline sync refers to the ability to basically download training while you're on the internet and then take that training while you're off the internet. So for example, while you're sitting on a plane. And the nice part about this is you take that training material and there's something that happens later when you go back on the internet called an automatic resync. So what that means is when you get back on the internet, your transcript updates and whatever you completed is incorporated into your transcript, which is very exciting. It's a very nice thing to have happen. So this is something that you can consider. This is something that if you are looking for a new learning management system, this is definitely something that you might look for. Oh, and Jonathan, what applications let you publish online-offline sync? So it's not about the application that you're using to publish the materials. For example, you could do like a PDF, you could do an e-learning content course of some kind, score 'em, something like that. The thing is, once you publish it and it's actually incorporated into the LMS is actually giving you the ability to download that material and view it. So it's not really about how you produce it, it's just about the LMS. All right, and that's a great question. QR codes, I had to bring this up because this is actually a great way to provide just-in-time training. So QR codes are a great way to basically allow somebody to jump to a piece of training content that you have and do it quickly. So for those who are familiar with the QR code, you can see here kind of what that process is. You can create a QR code, as you're seeing over here on the left-hand side of the screen. That QR code can link to a specific URL. And then once you can do it, you basically put that out there. Somebody comes along, they scan your QR code with their phone, they access whatever information you have linked to that URL, and they can use that information on the spot. So that's awesome. You can do this by, you can use it by putting a QR code on, let's say, a printer or a piece of material, something on the floor that people may be needing access to. And if they need access to, let's say, how to log on to your commercial printer, they can scan the QR code and bring up a tip sheet on it. Oh, and Ken has a great idea. Use QR codes in your scavenger hunts and make them look for the codes. What a great idea. Thank you, Ken. That's a neat one. Jonathan, Ken for the win. Yeah, that's a great one because they can scan the QR code, and if you have it linked into a URL that's within your LMS, you can actually track their progress through the scavenger hunt using those QR codes. What a great idea. Sweet. All right. Let's go on to number 4. Yeah, Ken wins that one. He wins this round. All right, so ditching the classroom and redefining mobile learning. If you have the busy bees, it's kind of hard to corral them within a classroom, as you may have encountered in the past. That's a difficult thing to do. So sometimes you have to bring the classroom to them, and that's where I get the idea of redefining mobile learning. So this is something that I have done myself. If you're looking to teach someone who's out on the floor, let's say you've got a big retailing environment, everybody's spread out. Let's say you've got an environment where everybody's working in an airplane hangar. Basically, everybody's kind of difficult to corral. You can always load up your training onto a cart and bring it to them. And I have done this in a retail environment. So what I used to do was I'd load up my cart, I'd have my iPad on there so that I could show videos. I'd have tip sheets. I would come up with different quizzes that we could give standing on the floor right in the middle of the retail environment, and would load up the cart with brownies. And the brownies had to be warm. And this is a key thing. So I used the brownies as the lure, because if you're rolling through a large space and you're trying to attract everybody, the brownies will do it for you. Saved me a lot of time. Everybody would come to the cart, and the deal was, if you listened to the training, if you did a video, if you did whatever, all you have to do is complete that, you get the brownie. Also works with popcorn, works with fondue, all sorts of things, just as long as it smells good. Food is shiny. So yeah, flat out bribe, that's fine. Tacos, yes, whatever you have available. But the idea of it was basically, you don't have to do things in the back of house. When you're doing training, you can actually go out to where the customers are and do it on the retail floor or wherever you're working, and that's fine. It's all good. Just make sure it's not proprietary information. Invite the customer to actually come over and participate. They actually do that because, it's good for the customer to see that you care enough about the employees that they're receiving training, and they're going to learn something out of it. And that's a great thing. And they get a brownie and they're happy. So everybody wins. I was on a training webinar where the organizer had pizza delivered to everyone. Oh, that's awesome. So it's virtual training, but you also get a snack out of it. That's so funny. Yeah, some great food tips that we are sharing here. All right, so moving on from that. This is a funny one. This is probably the one that got the biggest laugh at the conference, so I wanted to include it. This is not an idea that I had. This is actually stolen from a client of mine, and it's a transit authority that I've worked with for a while. They they shared with me last time I was up in the Seattle area, and I go in the restroom, and I happened to notice that in there they had these little 4x6 cards, basically the size of a little tiny index card, and had all sorts of information on it about this hotline that they were advertising. They wanted everybody to use this hotline and report a certain issue that was of concern to this organization. And I looked at that and I went, that's kind of cute. Basically, they had it in a little brochure holder in the stall. And I took one and I brought it to the person who had contracted with me. And I said, what is this? And she goes, that's just a little tip sheet that we've had out for about the last month. Oh, Alan is saying this would be a great place for a QR code. Yeah, absolutely. And I went, is this effective? And she went, absolutely. Before we started putting these out, nobody was using the hotline. And this was the only method they were using to promote it at this point. And all of a sudden, they saw an 800% jump in how many calls that they were getting to this hotline. So it was actually a great way of promoting things. And this was their pilot idea, kind of pilot program for this kind of marketing. But it was very successful, and they've now moved on to using it in other capacities. So my point in telling you this story is that the training was taking place in a very unexpected place. It's not something that's traditional at all, but it was effective for them. And it was, Jonathan, you're funny. You're on a roll. It was actually very effective simply because it was unexpected and not taking place in a classroom environment. It wouldn't necessarily have been a focus had they delivered it in a different way. Now, certainly you don't have to do it the way they did it. I'm sure you've got plenty of better ideas, but it worked for them. I'm just saying. There are lots of puns going on in the chat box that I'm enjoying very much. Elevator, yes, Barbara, very good idea. Oh, you guys, you're funny. All right, so the snowflake. We're moving on to the next chat, and Gary has put in the official line. All right. So funny, you guys. All right. So the snowflake, this is our unique learner. This is the one with all of the special requirements. They need a lot of one-on-one help. And sometimes it's hard for us, particularly if we are in fact a team of one, as you were referring to earlier. It's hard to cover everybody who has unique needs. So sometimes the best way is to divide and conquer. And more trainings equal lots of customized training opportunities. So you're probably listening to this and going, well, that's very nice, but if I had an unlimited training budget, I wouldn't have to attend this webinar. Yeah, I get it. There is one way that I have seen that actually allows you to extend your training team without spending a lot of budget. And yes, Ken, there is the opportunity for a train the trainer. There's also the opportunity to basically build what you could call a team trainer team. So if you are officially in learning and development, you could go around and basically look at all of the little departments or the little groups within your organization and try to pick out, yes, as Ronnie is saying, peer trainers. So this could be somebody who's looking for a promotion eventually. They're interested in working their way up in the organization. And this is an opportunity for them to demonstrate and practice their leadership abilities. This could be maybe a formal stepping stone on the way to a leadership position, maybe a first step toward a supervisor position. And yes, you could call them a training captain, as Christina is saying. So this person can actually reach out and do, let's say you do your formalized new hire training. This person could take care of some specialized training that pertains to that particular group, that little group. And they're able to deliver that one-on-one, which is exciting. The other thing that you can use them for You wouldn't necessarily even have to have a training captain, as we're saying, or a training lead, as Michaela is saying. You could also have this person be a normal employee, team member, and have a trainer actually supervise that person and do something that I like to call pay it forward. So this could be an activity where you've got two people working together, two employees. The trainer is kind of supervising what's going on, but also doing other tasks and just basically overhearing to make sure that the training is accurate. So you can be grading papers or whatever else and make sure that the employees are training each other appropriately. And this also gives them an opportunity to retain because the person who is training is actually getting reinforcement of that material as well. And as Ken says, the tribal trainers are more likely to get more candid feedback from their teams, which absolutely is true. All right. We're getting a little short on time, so I'm going to speed up a little bit. Encouraging employees to teach or make a video. So this is the idea of learners also being teachers, because we all have the ability to teach something that we know. So if you have people in class and you're needing to encourage them to actively participate, this is something that you could have them do. The nice part about this and why it pertains to a snowflake, if you've got more people teaching and making videos, you've got more specialized knowledge that's available within your curriculum, and more of that will pertain to somebody like a snowflake. That actually goes very nicely with the next tip, which is expanding your circle of SMEs, which are subject matter experts. And the idea of expanding the circle goes back to the same concept of having people create videos. You've got more content that you can go through, and basically you as the learning professional are acting as a curator rather than being the person who's developing everything. So you can set, as Lisa is saying, rules around content. Basically say, here are the standards, here's our style guide, perhaps, here are some standard elements, here are some template elements that you can use. And then when people submit things, you're going through them and basically saying, yes, no, revise this, and so on and so forth. You can give them credit in some way, have it show up maybe on their performance evaluation that they contributed their knowledge. And they're also learning a new skill. They're learning how to do video production, which is actually very appealing to some people. Yes, as Jonathan is saying, be more YouTube and less CBS. All right. Flipping the classroom. This is another great place. If you've got learning technology, if you're a big fan of learning management systems, this is another place that you can use your learning management system. So organizing your materials and flipping the classroom is something that's great for a snowflake. You might have a class that pertains to everybody within your organization, or a lot of people within your organization. You can take that class and then augment it by delivering e-learning materials or assignments before that class. Things that basically take that centralized class and modify it so it's more customized to your snowflakes. And you can certainly put together curriculums, you can put together training programs, or a cohort, different cohorts that cater to different people within the organization with different snowflake needs, that kind of thing. So this is definitely a place where an LMS will help you out. And if you have one that actually has a gamification capability like Captivate Prime does, you can have it be both things at the same time. You're delivering a training program and you're also giving people a motivation to participate by making it into a gamification framework. And Kathy says, I think doing trainings outside a classroom is great. I've done some on the Riverwalk and the beach, which I think is a great idea if you have that opportunity. Keeps people stimulated. All right, so our final tip here for the snowflake, mentorship. So Both people are really benefiting from this strongly. You have accountability for one and development for the other. My first encounter participating as a mentor in this kind of a relationship was with ATD. I was director of technology, and I actually took on a couple of mentees within my chapter. And I found that going through my own experiences and helping this person who was a new training manager learn her role actually taught me a tremendous amount and allowed me to kind of go over everything that I had gone through to that point and kind of consolidate it for someone else. So definitely it's a flipped classroom, Barbara's saying. Yeah, there's a certain flipped classroom quality to being in mentorship, and everybody is benefiting from that. And definitely, if you can take your snowflakes and pair them with people within their group, within that smaller organization that they work within, you are taking some of the pressure off of your learning organization and making sure that that person is well served. So one thing that I would suggest if you're in a mentorship program, as the learning professional, you really have knowledge that will allow someone to present their mentorship in a good framework. So maybe create some tip sheets, create some checklists for a mentor, maybe have a kickoff class teaching a mentor how to be a good mentor. There are a lot of coaching programs out there that are available and will help you structure that mentorship program. And you can definitely put together a curriculum, again, that is a blended learning curriculum through an LMS and so on, where somebody has different tasks that they do every week. They go in, complete a course, and their mentor gives them some advice on what they've completed so far. That also takes the load off the mentor, so they're not constantly having to come up with materials for that person to come through. So those are some ideas. Absolutely, checklists are the best. I agree, Barbara. Love it. Great. So certainly continue to add your ideas. I know we've got about 5 minutes left, and wanted to pop up this contact information in case you wanted to talk to me further after this class. And I also wanted to thank Gary, who is a wonderful host, and thank Training Magazine for having us. Absolutely thank everybody for participating in the chat and giving your own ideas. That's just as valuable as anything I could say. So thank you very much for participating, and it's been great to be here. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Gary.
And thank you.